Story 1. You have to sit in a chair for 8 hours at work to show that you are productive, even if you only pretend to work half of that time. Story 2. I think we should change the expectation of thank you cards after funerals. Having someone die is already stressful enough. I left my mom's funeral, had to find places for the plants and other things people had sent, and my dad insisted we write cards right away the same night. She had a long illness, then a week in hospice. We were exhausted, and honestly, I just wanted to be alone and grieve. I tell anyone I give food, flowers, or memorial money to, I don't need a thank you card. You don't need more chores and expense. I honestly feel the same way about when people have a new baby. Story 3. Optional office happy hours that are actually mandatory. Standing there with warm beer, listening to Kevin's fishing story for the 4th time, pretending this is team building. It is corporate theater where everyone pretends to have fun so management can check a box. Less networking, more Stockholm Syndrome with a charcuterie board. Story 4. That we have to pretend that it is okay to work over 40 hours a week until we are 65 and then live life to the fullest. I am tired already. I do not want to live life to the fullest when my knees hurt from sitting. Story 5. The fact that 20 and 30-year-olds consistently get botulinum toxin and dermal fillers now and totally wreck their faces is concerning. This has become the norm, and it is beyond tragic and foolish, not to mention it actually makes them look worse. Story 6. Standing too close to others in public is not appropriate. If I am in a line, I will keep distance from the person ahead of me. I am not talking about 6 feet apart social distancing. Just act like there is another person between us. That is how far away you should be. Story 7. Kids typically stop getting recess after 5th grade. You don't stop needing fresh air and a break once in a while when you turn 12. Let kids be kids and let them sit on a swing for 20 minutes. Story 8. Forced socializing at work and the entire work culture that operates based on social networks rather than merit and skill. I do not want to befriend you, Karen. I want to do my job and go home. Story 9. To be honest, tipping culture in the United States is broken. It is no longer really a thank you. It is basically how workers survive because restaurants can legally pay them about $2 an hour. The wild part is that tips do not even align with service quality half the time. It is more about who you are serving. Other countries pay a normal wage and add the cost into the menu, which reduces stress for everyone. Story 10. Currently, 1. Everything is subscription-based rather than single purchase ownership. 2. Maintaining an active social media presence. 3. Viewing males as a threat to random children, such as being suspicious at parks, if they are teachers or if they say they like children. 4. Government and corporate control over what we can say online. For example, YouTube forcing creators not to use correct terms like murder, suicide, rape, assault, or drugs. Remember the skit about the 7 words you cannot say on television? It has returned only online as censorship. Story 11. Optional work events usually involve some work discussion and decisions. If you are off the clock, those decisions should not be made, and people who do not want to attend work events should not be forced to go. Story 12. Not everyone should drive. Some people should not be driving because they are not skilled at it, but they are forced into it due to the lack of good public transportation. You should not be operating thousands of pounds of metal at 70 miles per hour if you are not fully comfortable and proficient. Additionally, designing infrastructure to prioritize cars is harmful to the environment. Besides car emissions, roads and parking lots negatively impact the groundwater supply, increase flooding, raise city temperatures, and pose dangers to wildlife. The high demand for parking also contributes significantly to the high cost of housing and makes affordable housing difficult to develop. Story 13. Gender norms are expectations about which clothes you can wear, interests you can have, and how one should behave. These norms are arbitrary and made up, yet everyone treats them as law because we are indoctrinated into this system from birth. These rules are fake. Boys can wear dresses and love unicorns. Girls can wear flannel shirts and love trucks. There is no logical reason why they should not have these harmless interests. People only think otherwise because someone created these made-up rules, and many choose to follow them instead of thinking for themselves. Story 14. Having to do your best to hide your disability in order to make the people around you more comfortable. Story 15. Saying, "Bless you," when someone sneezes is unusual and unnecessary, but people often get annoyed if I do not say it. Story 16. Pretending to be busy all the time, as if being exhausted is a form of showing off, instead of simply admitting you have poor time management. Story 17. People think you are strange if you do not care about celebrities. Story 18. Shaving leg hair as a woman for hygiene when men are not expected to do the same. Story 19. Blocking emotions instead of dealing with them, including aggressive behaviors. Story 20. Saying "bless you" after someone sneezes is a common courtesy. Our soul is not in danger of being taken by the devil. Story 21. Seeking validation on the internet is unreasonable. Our point of view varies based on our environment and social constructs. Story 22. In the United States, tipping. Last week, I got a haircut, and the stylist was very rude and messed up the haircut. When checking out, she said I forgot to tip. I told her that I did not. You cannot just tip because there is an option. If we are going to complain about tipping getting out of hand, we need to do something about it. Story 23. Having to put on a big fake grin whenever someone wants to take a picture is insane. Story 24. Lowering flags nationwide when a high-profile politician dies is a sign of respect. The problem is, I don't think anyone actually respects any of them at this point, so why is this still being done? Is it required by law? Are people fined if they do not comply? Story 25. Some people work high-paying jobs doing very little and always planning their vacations. Meanwhile, some people work minimum wage jobs, constantly working hard to make ends meet. Story 26. Men having to take off their hats inside, at the table or wherever to show respect. Pink for girls and blue for boys. Boy toys and girl toys. Bear me. Filming strangers who are just living their lives to put them on the internet. Using your kids for likes and notoriety. Not being able to read anything longer than a tweet. People refusing to use their words and then complaining because someone couldn't read their mind. Repeating the Pledge of Allegiance in school. Saying "no thank you" instead of "stop" or "that's not nice" or "that's not appropriate." The defense of sexual assault and the protection of predators. Blaming women for any and every wrong thing that a man does. I could probably do this all night. Story 27. Funerals. Sitting around a deceased person and watching people try to outdo each other with grief is not how I want to spend my time. Story 28. The expectation that you have to reply to work emails at all hours, even on weekends or vacations, is unreasonable. It is ridiculous to assume that people's personal time should be hijacked for work when most emails are not urgent. Boundaries matter, and this norm only fuels burnout and stress without justification. Story 29. Being fashionably late. I want people and myself to either be on time or not bother showing up. Story 30. Being considered rude or inconsiderate for not saying "God bless you" after someone sneezes. Story 31. Tipping in the United States. Employers should pay their employees what they are worth and then pass the full costs along to the consumer, instead of using a system where customers pay a separate, discretionary subsidy of the employee's wage. This approach makes every transaction unclear and awkward. Questions arise such as, should I tip? How much? Why am I tipping for a standard service? If I do not tip, am I harming the servers? Perhaps I should tip anyway. Story 32. Rich people can wear the same clothes every day, but poor people should not. Story 33. Getting on the internet, crying, begging for attention, money, and validation instead of seeing a therapist. Story 34. Handshakes. I don't like touching strangers much. Coughing into your hand, think about it. Story 35. Clothing gender norms. I, for one, do not care what you are wearing as long as I cannot see your genitals. Story 36. You are expected to ask me how I am doing, even though neither you nor I care. Story 37. Why is it considered improper to eat pieces of cooked steak with one's hands, but acceptable to eat chicken nuggets? Story 38. The idea that having your own child with your own sperm is somehow better than adopting is incorrect. There is no excuse other than selfishness. Adopting is strictly better. Also, the idea that adoption is supposed to be a secret is false. Most adopted children already know they are adopted, and if they do not yet, there is no reason not to tell them. If there are different races involved, the child may even figure it out on their own. Story 39. Judging people when the information you have about them is 1/1,000,000th of the total information in your brain, then denying that you are biased and proclaiming your judgment fair. Story 40. Pulling over for funerals passing by on roads wider than 2 lanes as a show of respect. How exactly is it respectful when you are not interrupting the flow of the funeral escort to begin with? If you are in the way, then yes, give the funeral escort room to move. If not, continue with your business. Story 41. In social sciences, people normally pause and reflect on the conversations just discussed. However, in modern society, that does not happen because it is considered socially awkward. We are forcefully going against nature. Not so much Generation Z and Generation Alpha, though they do not care as much. The problem probably lies with millennials. Story 42. Women are being asked to dress properly, while men are not being told they should stop raping and killing us. I hate my country. Story 43. People worry about how many likes or followers they have on social media. Story 44. Wearing Make America Great Again apparel in public and being surprised by people's reactions. No one asked for your opinions, yet you are loudly sharing them. Therefore, I will respond appropriately by looking at you and physically removing myself from any proximity to you. Story 45. The idea that you have to answer the door when someone is there is unreasonable. Please respect my time. Story 46. Going out for drinks. Like, I'm not even thirsty. Story 47. Posting selfies, especially attention-seeking photos, for validation. Story 48. People care too much about influential people and celebrities. Story 49. If you are being told to do something and you do it, it is just as meaningful as spontaneously deciding to do it yourself. Story 50. Wearing uncomfortable formal clothes to prove you are taking something seriously. I will happily respect a wedding, funeral, or job interview without a stiff collar cutting off my circulation or shoes that feel like medieval torture devices. It is bizarre that we collectively decided discomfort is necessary. Story 51. Bless you. When someone sneezes feels outdated. Story 52. Being stylish. I can wear my Pokemon merchandise at any time. Story 53. Rampant consumerism, late-stage capitalism, and the abysmal healthcare system of the United States. Story 54. Thinking naps are for children. What? You're only getting more tired with age. How does that even make sense? Story 55. People try to ruin someone's livelihood on the internet. Story 56. Using the word literally or super or fire as an adult. Story 57. Buying the most expensive house or car you can afford is not always wise. I watch people struggle at jobs they hate to make payments they do not really want, and for what? Their ego? My real estate agent was visibly upset when I chose a house that was $200,000 instead of $800,000. I just could not feel comfortable knowing if something happened, I might not be able to make my payments. Not to mention giving up the freedom to travel and dine out without worrying about my account balance having enough to cover payments. Story 58. Having to admit all the time that everything from the past must be better is tiring. Nostalgia is very popular right now, and it is sickening. No, the 1980s or 1990s were not better than today. I can give you a million reasons why. Either you were not around to remember it, or you were young then, so you look at the past through youth-colored glasses. Story 59. Socializing at my children's school. Unless making plans for our children, please leave me alone. Story 60. Making your diagnosis or mental health your entire identity is not healthy. Self-diagnosis should be avoided. Story 61. Women taking their husbands' last names upon marriage. Imagine if men took their wives' last names. Story 62. Carrying a large metal vehicle with you everywhere. containing 5 spare seats and mostly empty space, and expecting society to accommodate its storage wherever you go. Story 63. A sneeze requires a God bless you. Coughs, belches, or farts receive no response. Story 64. The concept of marriage and validating a relationship. Families often think it is their job to find you someone or that you have to have someone. Also, they want to do two-factor authentication before they let that person belong to you. Story 65. Not telling off other people's children when they blatantly misbehave, by standards that children should reasonably be expected to follow, is important. If the parents are not doing their job and the child needs guidance on how to interact with others, then you should intervene. Examples include when a child chases birds, litters, tries to jump ahead in a queue, or throws a temper tantrum about having to wait. Mild grumbling is understandable and acceptable. If the parents object, they are likely failing to teach the child that they cannot always have everything they want. You should not concede to every demand, especially if a child throws a tantrum over not getting a desired toy. The child can pay for the toy themselves if the parent considers it harmless. However, items like boxes with random toys inside might be vetoed by a responsible parent. At the same time, we should listen to children and reasonably accommodate their wishes. Talking back is not generally misbehavior. Parents are open to criticism, particularly when they spend more time on their phones than interacting with their children. Children likely would not act out or cry for attention if given enough attention. Calling out adults for littering or making a scene should be more socially acceptable. It would be beneficial if people who littered around a crowd were socially shamed, but this rarely happens. Story 66. The same girl we saw in a near-micro bikini thong at the beach made a scene when one of her little cousins accidentally saw her in her underwear while he needed to use the bathroom. Story 67. The degradation of public spaces with young people taking social media pictures and videos at every mildly interesting spot is disappointing. It feels so superficial. I am in a well-known historical city at the moment, and every place I visit is full of meaningless posing. Just enjoy the history and views. No one, not even the people taking the pictures, is going to care about these posts. They all look exactly the same. Yesterday, I went to a flower festival where there were over 30 young girls wearing the same outfit and hairstyle, waiting in line to do the exact same pose. The more than 100 unique and temporary flower arrangements went largely unnoticed. Story 68. People are on their phones and screens too much. It is now considered acceptable for kids to have friends over but sit on their iPads and ignore their friends. Story 69. Keeping your garden tidy. It is my garden. If I wanted to have moss, wild plants, or be covered in radioactive isotopes. Okay, maybe not that. That is my business as long as the neighbors are unaffected. Story 70. Lawns. Gender. Conspicuous consumption. Monogamy. Nuclear families. Full-time jobs. Being forced to own and maintain a car for transport. Honestly, most norms in our society are built on colonization and the ongoing exploitation of the natural world and its people. It is harmful and boring. Story 71. As a nudist, the fact that you have to buy specific clothes and put them on to jump into a body of water now seems odd. It is like getting dressed to take a shower. Story 72. Not seeking out more knowledge after high school and going straight into the workforce is limiting. Knowledge is powerful because one piece of knowledge, just one epiphany and realization, is the literal difference between being rich and wealthy and living your dream life versus living a poor life due to excuses, whether valid or not. Additionally, some women do not take accountability or apologize. This is pride. Not every woman is like this, but those who tend to be prideful to the point where they weaponize their emotions and frame themselves as victims instead of owning their part of the conflict or situation. Removing gender, all that remains is a human being unable to admit their role in a situation because of their feelings. Story 73. IKEA's existence. No one likes it, we all hate it, and yet it keeps existing. Friends and family keep dragging you there. It's like mandatory torture. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.